What if the love of your life came from a different world, and you could only hold on to their memory for 22 years? This isn't just a love story, it's a journey across borders, time, and silence. Meet Mason and Sophia, two souls who met by chance, separated by duty and reunited by destiny. Stay with me, because this story will stay with you forever. In the cool breeze of early autumn, the hills of Vermont were blanketed in shades of amber and gold. The small town of Maple Valley was quiet that day, except for the buzz of a local festival that had just wrapped up. The townspeople were returning to their homes, and the roads, while still scenic, had begun to empty. Mason Carter, a decorated officer with the U.S. Air Force, was driving along one of those winding country roads. His life was measured, disciplined, and built on service and sacrifice. He believed in silence more than small talk, and in purpose more than pleasure. That day, though, the air felt different charged. As he turned a sharp corner near an old wooden bridge, he spotted something unexpected. A bus tilted dangerously off the road, smoke rising faintly from its engine, a crowd of panicked passengers spilling out into the grass. Among them was a young woman in a dusty blue coat, clutching her suitcase and looking more confused than scared. Mason pulled over, stepped out, and rushed toward the wreck. "Is everyone all right?" he asked firmly. The woman turned to him, her dark eyes brimming with tears, but filled with quiet strength. "I think so. We just lost control." She spoke with a soft accent. "Not local, not even American." "Are you hurt?" he asked her directly. She shook her head. "No, just lost." That's how it began. Her name was Sophia Rahimi. She was a 26-year-old student and a volunteer for a cultural heritage exchange program from Tehran, Iran. She had arrived in the US to visit the burial site of her grandmother's friend, a woman who had once lived in this very town. Sophia was kind, graceful, and grounded. There was something haunting in her calm. She spoke gently, chose her words like she chose her steps carefully, but without hesitation. After helping with the injured and guiding them toward safety, Mason offered to drive her to the town's inn. There were no taxis around, and she was alone. "Are you sure?" she asked, hesitant. "I don't want to be a burden." "You're not," he said, unlocking the passenger door. "Besides, it's the least I can do." In that 15-minute drive, silence wrapped around them, but not the awkward kind. It was comfortable, the kind that speaks louder than words. Sophia intended to stay in Maple Valley for only 2 days, but weather delays and road closures kept her longer. Mason, living alone in a modest home near the town's edge, offered to show her around. She agreed, not out of dependence, but trust. They visited the old community center where her grandmother's friend had volunteered. They shared coffee at the same diner every morning. She listened to his stories about flying rescue missions. He listened to her tales of Tehran's bustling bazaars, her parents, her dreams of building schools for underprivileged children. Their conversations became a lifeline, deep, meaningful, and magnetic. On her last day, standing beneath the fading sun, Sophia looked at him with a softness that held something more. "Why does it feel like I've known you longer than I actually have?" she asked. Mason smiled, his eyes distant. "Because some people don't enter your life, they return to it." Neither of them said the word love, but it hovered between every breath they took. Sophia left the next morning. Mason drove her to the train station, both of them pretending it was just another errand. The platform was quiet. Her ticket in her hand trembled slightly. "I never asked," she said. "Are you married?" "No," Mason replied. "Never found someone I couldn't let go of," she smiled. "That's a rare thing." He wanted to say more. He wanted to ask her to stay, but he didn't, and she didn't ask either. Sometimes, silence is the most sacred form of connection. As the train pulled away, she looked back at him through the glass. He didn't wave. He just stood still, his eyes holding hers until the train disappeared around the bend. Days turned into weeks. Mason returned to base, resumed his duties, but his heart wasn't the same. He had known loneliness before, but this was different. This was the ache of something almost found, then lost. One evening, months later, he received a letter. It was written in neat cursive, scented faintly of rosewater. "Mason, I hope you remember me. I think of Maple Valley often. The silence, the warmth, the peace. I'm getting engaged soon. It's been arranged." And I said yes, because that's what is expected. But a part of me stayed on that train platform with you, Sophia. He read it over and over again. Then he folded it, placed it in a drawer, and stared into the distance. That night, Mason packed a small bag, took a leave from duty, and boarded a flight to Iran. He never told anyone. Tehran was not like Vermont. It was loud, colorful, steeped in history and memory. Mason, tall and foreign-looking, attracted attention, but he wasn't here for sightseeing. He was looking for Sophia. What he found instead was a truth he wasn't prepared for. Sophia had just been engaged to a prominent minister's son. Her father, a respected lawyer, had agreed to the match. Mason couldn't walk up to her door. He couldn't destroy her world. So, instead, he disappeared into the city's quieter corners until someone noticed. Sophia's friend, Lele, found Mason in the courtyard of a local shrine. She recognized him from a photo Sophia kept hidden in a book. "You came for her," Lele whispered. Mason nodded. "She still loves you, but she's bound by duty. You being here, it might ruin everything." Mason left that evening, but before he could return to the US, he was arrested under suspicion of espionage. His military background, his silence, and the political pressure made him an easy scapegoat. He was sentenced to 22 years in a remote prison. No trial, no contact. No one ever knew what happened to him, except Sophia. She never stopped waiting. 22 years later, in a small Tehran courtroom, A young human rights lawyer named Layla Hosseini was handed a forgotten case file. It was thin, with faded ink and barely legible notes, but something about it caught her attention. It read, "Mason Carter, American, accused of espionage. No trial, no family contact." Layla was bold, intelligent, and principled. She believed that justice had no nationality. When she visited the prison, she found an older, gray-haired Mason quiet, dignified, his eyes still full of life despite the years. "Why didn't you speak in your defense?" she asked. "Because it would have hurt someone who didn't deserve it," he replied. She knew there was more to the story, something personal, something deeply buried. Layla dug through old letters, community records, and spoke to retired officials. She finally reached Sophia, now a mature, elegant woman living in the countryside. Sophia had never married. Her eyes welled up when Layla mentioned Mason. "I thought he left. I thought he moved on. No one told me he was arrested. I would have waited forever. If only I knew." Layla gently held her hand. "You still can, but we must fight for him. Will you help?" Sophia nodded. In a packed courtroom, Mason's silence was finally broken. Layla presented documents, personal letters, and a heartfelt testimony from Sophia. The courtroom grew still when Sophia stepped in and spoke of their story, the love, the sacrifice, and the 22 years of silence. The judge, visibly moved, delivered the verdict. Mason Carter was innocent, wrongfully imprisoned, and free to go. As Mason stepped out of the courtroom into the bright sunlight, Sophia stood waiting near the garden wall, a scarf fluttering lightly around her shoulders. They didn't run. They didn't cry. They just looked at each other, 22 years folded into one long gaze. Mason whispered, "I waited too." Sophia smiled, and this time, her eyes didn't hold pain. They walked away slowly, side by side, toward a future that had waited patiently for them all along. A story of love beyond borders, of silence that speaks, of justice, patience, and souls meant to find each other again. Subscribe for dreamy love stories that melt your heart. Turn on notifications so you never miss a romantic chapter. Comment below what's your favorite kind of love story, because every heart deserves a sleepy, sweet escape.